Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. The story begins in northern Australia, where the couple Miyuki and Akito are exploring a forested area. The signal is bad, and Miyuki can't use the GPS, but she doesn't want to admit that she is lost. Each thinks the right path is in a different direction, and the two end up arguing. Akito decides to move forward while Miyuki insists on staying put, but soon fear takes over. She follows him and calls his name, increasingly worried. When Akito starts shouting, she runs to help him and falls into the same hole as him, injuring her leg. They are at the edge of what appears to be an underground lake, and Akito is unconscious. Then, Miyuki hears a noise, like something moving in the water. Terrified, she starts to cry softly and tries to pull herself out. Unfortunately, the creature strikes before she can escape. The scene shifts, and we meet the couple Jennifer and Eric. They are going on a trip with friends, and Eric is finishing loading the car while Jennifer is secretly snooping on his phone. When he asks if she has seen his phone, she says no and then pretends to find it on the couch. Victor and Yolanda are the other couple, who have just arrived. The four hit the road and stop at a bar to meet the last member of the group, a guy named Cash. He is the one who chose the trip's destination, a nearly unexplored cave. Cash assures them it is not in any travel guide and therefore few have been there. This doesn't please Victor much, but Eric tells his friend that there is no danger. Alone at the counter, the two women talk about their husbands. Jennifer reveals her suspicions of infidelity, and Yolanda shares that she is pregnant but hasn't told Victor yet. After having fun at the bar, they all head to their rooms, and Victor talks to his wife, suggesting they should cancel the trip. He is not very confident and prefers a more relaxed outing. But Yolanda reminds him that he promised to live life to the fullest after recently overcoming cancer. He eventually agrees, and the trip begins the next day. Cash explains that he found the cave by chance while searching for a missing couple of Japanese tourists. His careless comments worsen Victor's apprehensions, and when Yolanda takes a photo of a crocodile, Jennifer also starts to worry and asks if there are many around. Trying to calm his friends, Cash shows that he brought a gun. But his irresponsible way of waving it in front of the passengers only worsens the situation. He claims it's not loaded and that the bullets are in the glove compartment, but he doesn't apologize. Arriving at the destination, Eric shows him a weather alert, and Cash dismisses it, saying there's no problem because the storm is heading south. Neither of them shares this information with the rest of the group. A few meters ahead, they reach the huge hole and begin to put on their gear. Being the most experienced member of the group, Eric is the first to descend. Victor and Yolanda are next, leaving Jennifer and Cash for last. There isn't much to see inside, but the adventurers hope to find connections to undiscovered underground galleries. Yolanda finds what appears to be a narrow passage, and once again Eric goes first. Cash is always a gentleman and lets everyone pass, barely hiding his cowardice. Meanwhile, the sky fills with dark clouds, and a gust of wind begins outside. Seeing that the passage actually leads to a long tunnel, Eric gets excited about the discovery, and Yolanda becomes curious about where it goes. Victor and Jennifer do not share the enthusiasm and are increasingly anxious. Then Cash shines a light on something strange that looks like the remains of a goat. No one can explain how it ended up down there. A few steps further, they find a trickle of water running over the rocks, and Cash says it must be leaking from somewhere else. By this point, the storm is right on top of them, and heavy rain begins. The explorers cross a narrower section until they reach an underground lake. Everyone admires the beauty of that unexplored sanctuary. While Yolanda sneaks along the sides with Jennifer and Victor, Eric and Cash enter the lake. The water reaches their waists, but some unevenness at the bottom nearly makes Eric fall. At the opposite end, there is another trickle of water, and Eric finds it strange that it is flowing so fast. The main light's battery dies at that moment, plunging the cave into darkness. Cash is dismayed when Eric decides to turn back, worried about the leaks. As the two step back into the water, Jennifer hears something bubbling and shines her flashlight on the lake. Seeing some suspicious ripples, she warns that there's something in there with them. However, no one hears her, as now an intense vibration spreads through the rocks. The wave crashes forcefully through the tunnel, knocking everyone into the water and dramatically raising the lake's level. They begin to scream and hurry to climb onto the side rocks, becoming stranded at the bottom of the cave. On top of that, Cash says he lost the backpack with the car keys. Once the shock passes, the group starts planning ways to get out, as the entrance they came through is now submerged. Eric says it's just for a stretch, and it is possible to dive to the part of the tunnel above the water. Jennifer panics at the idea of being underwater in a terrifying cave and prefers to wait for the water to go down. However, Eric shines his light on a rock directly in front of them, showing that the water level hasn't stopped rising and will only make it harder to escape as time passes. Although she understands the problem, Jennifer is still very afraid to enter the water, especially when she remembers seeing something suspicious. On top of everything, they still need to find Cash's backpack, or they won't be able to get out of the forest afterward. Finally, everyone convinces themselves that there is no other way. When Eric enters the lake, we see that the water now reaches his neck. The others imitate him, following in a line to the opposite side. It is then that Victor sees an object floating not far from him and realizes it is the backpack. He warns he will fetch it while the others reach the mouth of the tunnel. Eric plans to swim through the passage and return to check if the crossing is safe before everyone goes in. By his calculations, he will be underwater for a maximum of 15 seconds. He is about to enter when Victor screams. Yolanda starts calling for him and shining her light on the lake, but no one responds and she can't see her husband anywhere. Very worried, the others start looking for him too. He suddenly resurfaces but is pulled down right after. Everything happens very quickly, and no one can see what is attacking Victor. Eric tells everyone to get out of the water immediately. Cash and Yolanda climb one way, while Jennifer and Eric stay on the opposite bank. Yolanda begins to cry upon seeing a body floating near her, with many parts missing. But when Cash pulls the body, she sees it is not her husband's clothes. Soon after, Victor starts screaming and everyone shines their lights on him. The water is all red around him, but at least it seems the creature has let him go now. He manages to swim toward the edge with painful strokes, and Eric goes to help him. At that moment, Jennifer sees the crocodile coming and starts screaming. The two swim as fast as they can and manage to escape, but Victor is very badly hurt and the first aid kit won't be enough. Jennifer says he needs to be taken to a hospital as soon as possible. Eric then decides that he and Cash will swim to where there is a signal and call for help. Cash is stunned by his friend's audacity in including him in such a risky idea. Eric doesn't even respond, saying that after using the phone, the two will grab the gun and go back down to deal with the crocodile. Cash replies with a nervous laugh and refuses to participate. But then Jennifer also tells her husband that this is madness, and Eric explains his reasons. Besides Victor's situation, they are all trapped with an extremely territorial animal that won't rest until it gets rid of everyone. They may be safe on that bank, but that won't last long. Hearing these words, Cash changes his mind and proposes a precaution, with Yolanda's help. She returns the unknown body to the lake, and everyone waits, nearly holding their breath. As soon as the beast bites the bait, Eric and Cash take the opportunity and enter the water. Despite the impulse to run, the two need to move very slowly because the crocodile is sensitive to vibrations and will come after them as soon as it senses them. Very slowly, the two cross the halves of the lake and meet in the middle. The dive is indeed short, and they soon manage to raise their heads above the water. Eric remains on alert when he sees bubbles on the surface that suddenly disappear. Then Cash screams, saying he felt something, but Eric dives to check and sees nothing. Meanwhile, Victor starts having an asthma attack, and his inhaler is in his wife's backpack on the other bank. Even with her best throw, Yolanda fails terribly. The inhaler falls right in the middle of the lake. She rummages through the backpack in case she brought another, but discovers that she did not. Victor is breathing very heavily, and Yolanda can't bear to see his suffering. She decides to enter the water to get the inhaler. Jennifer begs her not to, but realizes it is useless and then helps shine the light. As soon as she retrieves the inhaler, the two hear the sound of water splashing at the bottom of the cave. Jennifer sees the crocodile is already too close for Yolanda to run to the bank, so she tells her to stay still. It swims right next to her and grabs the rest of the body that was still floating nearby. Yolanda bolts and Jennifer grabs her arm, pulling her up. She quickly applies the inhaler, and Victor's breathing returns to normal. In the tunnel, Cash and Eric reach the narrow passage they entered through. This time, the submerged section will be a little longer, and Eric says he can go alone, but Cash responds that he won't let him take all the glory. With a handshake that could be the last, they hold their breath and dive. To their complete horror, there is no opening on the other side, as the force of the water shifted some rocks, blocking the passage. They even try to clear the exit, but the stones won't budge. The return path to the lake isn't as calm as the journey in, since the water level is much higher, and now there are more submerged sections. In one of them, Eric gets his foot stuck in a rock and can't call for Cash. He pulls his leg with all his strength and nearly drowns before managing to free himself. Cash is already at the part of the tunnel closest to the lake, waiting for Eric and wondering about the delay. Something starts bubbling again a few meters away. Hoping it's his friend, he dives to take a look. He sees nothing at first, but then the crocodile's mouth appears right in the beam of light and then disappears. Totally petrified, Cash returns to the surface and tries to stay still, until he gathers the courage to peek again. The crocodile attacks him suddenly from the right. Cash screams and tries to break free, but soon he disappears beneath the surface. Next, Eric arrives at the same point in the tunnel and begins calling for his friend, receiving no response. Then he sees a strange light coming from under the water and finds Cash's helmet light. In the lake, Jennifer feels a light breeze and starts trying to discover where it is coming from. Taking advantage of the moment alone, Yolanda tells her husband about the baby, and he is delighted with the news. Following the breeze, Jennifer finds a passage that no one had seen before. At the same time, Eric is returning, full of bad news. The others are saddened to hear what happened to Cash, but when he says the exit is blocked, Jennifer warns that she found an alternative. The gap is very narrow, but at least it is still completely out of the water. Since Yolanda has more experience, she joins Eric and asks Jennifer to take care of Victor. Shortly after the two enter the gap, Jennifer realizes that the water has started rising faster and is almost reaching them. Victor is very weak and can barely move, but she insists he tries, or they will both be in trouble soon. To make matters worse, there is no way to reach any higher ground without entering the water. Carefully, she helps Victor into the lake and carries him to the other rock, which is a little higher. Seeing that the backpack was left at the edge, she goes over to retrieve it and suddenly stops upon hearing very close splashes. She shines the light over the lake and sees nothing until the massive jaws open right in front of her. Jennifer is so startled that she falls on top of Victor, who screams in pain. The crocodile gives up and returns to the water, but this shows Jennifer that it is not safe to stay there. Taking advantage of the momentum, she throws their things onto the rock above, climbs up, and starts pulling Victor. The animal closely observes the entire operation and almost strikes while Victor's legs are dangling, but he manages to climb up without further incidents. Checking his stomach, Jennifer grimaces in distress and then disguises it when she sees that he noticed. Emotional, Victor tells her he will be a father, and that this is almost a miracle, since the doctors said the chemotherapy would cause sterility. Upon hearing this, Jennifer's expression starts to change as if she suspects something. Meanwhile, Eric and Yolanda reach the end of the path and discover that there is also no way out there. She starts to lose hope, but he assures her they will find a way out somehow. Still suspicious, Jennifer grabs Yolanda's camera and finds pictures of her friend with Eric. When Victor asks if everything is okay, she pretends and says nothing. Then he warns that the backpack with the car keys is in the water. She asks him to hold the flashlight and begins to descend. Cautiously, she returns to the edge from where they just came and leans over the water to get the backpack, but she can't reach it. Seeing that there will be no other way, she enters the water very slowly, causing ripples that push the backpack further away. She manages to grab it with a few more steps, and it is then that Victor notices the crocodile swimming towards them. In the rush to get back to the edge, Jennifer slips and hits her head on a rock. Victor panics when he sees that she is unconscious, lying right within reach of the beast. With tremendous effort, he crawls over to her and begins to roll her body away from the water. She regains consciousness just in time to see the crocodile leaping out of the water suddenly and attacking Victor. He pulls him into the lake, and the two only reappear on the other side. Jennifer covers her face so she won't see her friend's horrible end. Grabbing the backpack, she returns to the highest rock and sees a strange circular light appearing from beneath the water. When the others return, Yolanda asks where her husband is, and Jennifer begins to cry. She is in shock for a few moments while Eric tells them that the gap led to nothing. Jennifer loses her patience and begins to blame him for the irresponsible trip. When Yolanda starts sobbing, and Eric comforts her, Jennifer asks if the two are having an affair. Yolanda says it was just a big mistake, confirming that Eric is the father of the baby. Jennifer is devastated but prefers to focus on the more immediate problem and shows Eric the illuminated circle. He says that it's daylight, which means there is a passage to the surface. By throwing an object in that direction, he proves that the water is being sucked out. Now the roles reverse, and Jennifer is the only one who wants to try to get out rather than waiting for another attack. The other two end up deciding to follow her, and they all face one more terrifying walk through the water. This time, Eric stays behind, always keeping an eye on the surface. Seeing the danger approaching, he tells the two to swim fast and stays behind. With a knife, he starts challenging his enemy to attack him first. The crocodile accepts the challenge and defeats Eric with bites. With no time to mourn him, Jennifer and Yolanda plunge into the illuminated tunnel and find themselves in another cave. Despite the gruesome signs that this is where the crocodile makes its meals, the place is well lit, and they manage to reach the exit without difficulty. Finally back on the surface, it doesn't take long for the two to reach the car. Yolanda begins an apology, but Jennifer interrupts her, saying it's not the time, and starts driving. Upon reaching a curve, a fallen tree blocks the way. Jennifer can't brake in time, and the car ends up in the river. When she realizes it is the same river they just escaped from, the crocodile is already right in front of them. Yolanda remembers Kesh's gun, but by the time she manages to load it, the target has already disappeared. The two look around until the crocodile jumps through the driver's window. They hardly recover from the shock when they face another, as now the car is sinking rapidly. After several attempts, Jennifer manages to force the window down and swims out. Yolanda emerges soon after and says she hurt her ankle. The two start swimming to the bank, and we see that the crocodile has not yet given up on them. Yolanda is in a lot of pain, and the distance between the two is already great when she sees the crocodile. Jennifer reaches the bank and starts shooting while helping Yolanda out of the water. The crocodile leaps and grabs Jennifer, much to Yolanda's despair. After hearing a muffled gunshot, she begins to cry as she sees the water turning red. However, it is Jennifer who emerges victorious. The crocodile's body floats for a few moments before sinking, and the friends embrace, happy to still be alive.